Testing, testing, test, testing, testing, testing. No. Well, give me them headphones, yo. Well, give me them headphones.
Abdullah. Abdullah. I just said give him the headphones. Have you used the phone?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Testing, 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 testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Testing, testing. Don't know, obviously. They don't work. Turn that snowball. Turn that snowball. Testing, testing. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم الملك القدوس السلام وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن تبع هداه إلى يوم الدين. I'm not sure which broadcast this is, but we're gonna switch gears a little bit because of the closeness to Ramadan. Ramadan is like 20 days away, 21 days away. So we're going to move to the chapter of fasting, the book on fasting from Umdatul Fiqh. And so that we can familiarize ourselves with some rulings related to fasting. So we begin with Billahi Tawfiq. The explainer, he says, I'm skipping around once again. Certain stuff in the books I might leave out for brevity or because it might not be appropriate to translate it because it's a benefit, because the benefit might not be received or understood, or for other reasons. So sometimes I leave out certain things. So the author, he says Kitabul Siyam. Kitabul Siyam. And the explainer Sheikh Abdul Aziz Al-Rajihi, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, he explains he explains he explains the word siyam, fasting, means to withhold from eating or drinking or speaking or getting married or traveling and so on and so forth. And a person that's quiet is referred to as Sa'im, right? And he mentions the ayah from Surah Al-Maryam. So the meaning of fasting means to refrain. In terms of the legislation, the Sheikh, he says, فَالْمُرَادُ بِالصِّيَامِ الْإِمْسَاكِ. It means al-imsak بنية عن أشياء مخصوصة في زمن مخصوص من شخص مخصوص. And the legislation was meant by fasting. Siyam is a certain individual or withholding with an intention. A person has an intention and he's withholding from specific things during a specific time. A specific person having an intention, withholding from specific things in a specific time. The Sheikh, he says the imsak is the withholding is from food, drink, and other things that break your fast. Then he says, وَهُوَ بِنِيَّةٍ إِذْ مِنْ غَيَّرَ نِيَّةً إِذْ مِنْ غَيْرِ نِيَّةٍ لَا يُسَمَّى صِيَامًا. Because without an intention, without the specific intention to fast, it's not referred to as fasting. عن أشياء مخصوصة لأن كلمة أشياء ممنوع من الصرف. أشياء مخصوصة. Refraining from specific things, the Sheikh, he says this means, or this is, those things that are refrained from are food, drink, relations with the wife, relations of a man having relations with his wife, or a woman having relations with her husband, intimate relations. والمفطرات. The imsak is from food, drink, jima', which is intimate relations, and al-mufattirat, other things that break your fast. في زمن مخصوص, in a specific time. That specific time is, وهو الشيخ says, وهو من طلوع الفجر إلى غروب الشمس. From Fajr, from the time of Fajr, from the time of Salat al-Fajr to until the sunset. The sun sets. من شخص مخصوص, from a specific person. The specific person is, the Shaykh says, هو المسلم البالغ العاقل الذي ليس له مانع من الصوم. The specific person is the Muslim that has reached a certain age, the age of this puberty, who has a sound intellect, who doesn't have anything that prevents him from fasting. The Shaykh, he says, فَلَيْسَ لِلْحَائِض أو النُّفَسَاء الصِّيَامِ. Because the woman that is on her menses, or the woman who is in postnatal bleeding, they are not to fast. كما سيذكره المؤلف, as the author is going to mention, inshallah. So the author, he goes on to say, يجب صيام رمضان على كل مسلم بالغ عاقل قادر على الصوم. Fasting is obligatory in the month of Ramadan, during Ramadan. Fasting Ramadan is obligatory upon every Muslim that has reached the age of puberty, that has a sound intellect, that has the ability to fast. The Sheikh is going to explain all of these different statements. يجب صيام رمضان. Fasting Ramadan is obligatory. Siyam Ramadan rukunun min arkan al-Islam. Fasting Ramadan is a pillar, is one of the pillars of Islam. وقد دل على وجوبه الكتاب والسنة والإجماع. And the Quran, the obligation for fasting is found in the Quran, or the texts that prove that fasting is obligatory can be found in the Quran and the Sunnah, and there's also a consensus among the scholars. Can you think of any verses in the Quran that show the obligation for fasting? If we stick to Juz Amma, for example, I don't know about Juz Amma. Can you think of any verses that show the obligation of fasting? The Shaykh Hafidullah Ta'ala, he mentions the two verses from Surah Al-Baqarah. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. And the verse where Allah says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. O you who believe, fasting was kutiba alaykum, prescribed, written upon you, prescribed upon you, as it was for those who came before you, so that you may be righteous, pious, protect yourself from the hellfire. And the wajh dalala, the way that this is extracted is because Allah Ta'ala used the term kutiba, kutiba. And I believe the scholars, they mention this as one of the types of verbiage that point to obligation, that show obligation. Kutiba alaykum. Kutiba alaykum as-siyam, right? Kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. And then the next verse, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Whoever of you witnesses the month of Ramadan, فَلْيَصُمْهُ. He has to pass. And this lam is called lam al-amr. Lam al-amr. So it's an order. Allah Ta'ala says, فَلْيَصُمْهُ. Right? He should fast the month. He has to fast the month. So that's the wajh dalala. It mentions the lam al-amr and the order in the Sharia and the Islam. In Islam, the order, but also we benefit from the Allah Ta'ala ordering something is that thing is obligatory. And there, of course, are exceptions, like if there's another text that shows that it's not obligatory, or if the order comes after a prohibition, or like this. The hadith, can you think about any hadith that show the obligation? From 40 hadith, for example. The hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, when he says, بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلَى خَمْسٍ. بُنِيَ الْإِسْلَامُ عَلى خَمْسٍ. Islam was built upon 5. Islam was based on 5 things. Shahadati and la ilaha illallah, to witness that none has the right to worship Allah, and that Muhammad is the Messenger of Allah. Wa iqam as-salat, and establishing the prayer. Wa ita az-zakat, and paying the zakat. Wal hajj, hajj al-bayt, making hajj. Wa sawm Ramadan, fasting Ramadan. That's one example. Another one, the hadith of Jibreel, where hadith of Jibreel, where Jibreel asked, أخبرني عن الإسلام. قال أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. Jibreel says to the Messenger of Allah, inform me about Islam. The Messenger of Allah said, أن تشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. يعني الثاني that you bear witness that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah وأن محمد رسول الله وأن محمد رسول الله وتقيم الصلاة وتقيم الصلاة أو تقيم الصلاة that you establish the prayer وتؤتي الزكاة that you give the zakat وتصوم رمضان that you fast Ramadan that you fast Ramadan. Also the hadith of Ibn Abbas when the Prophet sent Mu'adh to Yemen. He said أول ما تدعوهم إليه واحد الله. Or another narration. And the different was mentioned different different verbiage is mentioned in different narration. That's not the point here. The point is where he says فإن أطاعوك فأخبرهم أن الله كتب عليكم خمس صلوات في الليل والليل. If also after that it mentions eventually in the Sunnah Ramadan. I can't remember this. Right? It mentions the zakat, so on and so forth. That might be. In any event, barakallahu feekum. In any event, the Sheikh he says وقد أجمعت الأمة على وجوب صيام رمضان. The Ummah has agreed. There's a consensus among the Ummah about fasting Ramadan. He says فقوله على كل مسلم upon every Muslim. I mean, it's fasting Ramadan is obligatory upon every Muslim. The explainer he says هنا شروط وجوب الصيام. These are the conditions for the fasting to be obligatory. These are the conditions for fasting to be obligatory. Because there are conditions for something to be obligatory, and then there are conditions for a thing to be correct, for a type of worship to be correct. There are conditions for types of worship to be obligatory, and there are conditions for worship to be correct. Right? And those are two different things. The difference is the conditions for something to be obligatory. If a person does, if these things, these qualities gather in a person, if these qualities exist together in a person, then that action is obligatory. In this case, fasting. And the conditions for an action to be correct are if these qualities gather in that action, then the action is correct. Right? That's the difference. So anyway, the Sheikh he says, ala kulli muslimin. Yeah, right? Fasting Ramadan is obligatory upon every Muslim. This is the first condition. فصوم رمضان يجب على المسلم. Fasting Ramadan is obligatory upon the Muslim. فالكافر لا يصح منه الصوم. لو صام حتى يدخل الإسلام. Fasting Ramadan is obligatory upon a Muslim. If the kafir fasts, if the non-Muslim fasts, his fasting is not correct. Even if he fasts until he enters Islam. Because fasting is not correct until a person has Iman, has Islam. وليس معنى ذلك أنه لا يحاسب ولا يعاقب على الصوم. This does not prevent the non-Muslim who does not fast from being um, this does not uh, this does not prevent the kafir who does not fast from being punished and brought to account or held responsible for not fasting. In fact, he will be punished on the day of judgment for not fasting, not praying, and not accepting Islam. Right? Of course, this is talking about the person who heard about correct Islam and rejected it. And Allah Ta'ala is all knowing. So there's no need for us to worry about so and so and so and so. Allah Ta'ala does not oppress anybody. Allah Ta'ala does not oppress anybody. Allah Ta'ala does not oppress anybody. And Allah Ta'ala knows everything. Allah Ta'ala knows who his hujjah reached and who didn't. Anyway, the Sheikh he says the meaning أنه لو صام في حال كفره ما صح صومه حتى يدخل في الإسلام. If the non-Muslim fasts, as the non-Muslim fasts, his fast will not be correct. His fast is not correct until he enters Islam. وهذا هو الشرط الأول أن يكون مسلما. So this is the first condition that the person fasting has to be a Muslim. That the person fasting has to be a Muslim, right? Like the second شرط الثاني, the second condition, al-bulugh, that the person has to have reached the age of puberty. فالصبي لا يجب عليه الصوم لكن لو صام وهو صبي صح صومه. Once again, we're talking about condition for an act to be obligatory. So the second condition is that a person has to reach the age of puberty, because the child, it's not obligatory upon the child to fast. It's not obligatory upon the child to fast. However, if he fasts, if a young child fasts, his fast is accepted. It is accepted, right? ويأمره وليه إذا كان يطيقه, and his parent or what have you orders him to fast, orders the young child to fast if he can take it, ليتدرب عليه, to train, in order to train in fasting. وكان السلف رضوان الله عليهم يصومون أولادهم الصغار إذا كانوا يطيقون. The companions used to make their children fast, the young children fast, if they could take it, if they could withstand the fasting. ويعطونهم لعبة من العهد, they used to give them sort of like toys. يتلهون بها إذا جاءوا, to make them forget about being hungry. حتى يأتي وقت الإفطار, right? To make them forget about being hungry up and until the time of up until breakfast time. قوله عاقل يعني مسلم عاقل. وهذا هو الشرط الثاني. This is the third condition. This is the third condition for an action to be obligatory. And يكون عاقلا, the person has to be a sound intellect, sound mind. فالمجنون وفاقد العقل لا يجب عليه الصوم. The person who is insane, or the person who is insane, or his intellect is not intact, or like this, fasting is not obligatory upon him, right? And a person's intellect not being sound is two types. One type is permanent, one type is the other type is not permanent. And the proof that the person whose intellect is not sound it's not obligatory for him to fast. The proof that it's not obligatory for the person whose intellect is not sound or is not intact to fast is the statement of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as it is mentioned in the Bukhari and Muslim. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Rufi'a al-qalamu an thalathatin." The pen is lifted from three categories of people. An as-saghir hatta yablugh. The pen is lifted from the pen of writing. In this case, the pen of writing punishment for not doing something, right? An as-saghir hatta yablugh. The young child until he reaches the age of puberty. An al-majnoon hatta yafiq. From the person who is crazy or majnoon or not of sound minds until he comes to. And that's the shahid, that's the point of reference. وَعَنِ النَّائِمْ حَتَّى يَسْتَيْقِظ. And the pen is lifted from the person who is sleeping until he wakes up. We'll stop here. I'll stop here, inshallah. Stop here, inshallah. Allah Ta'ala give us success and help us to rectify our affairs, purify our hearts, purify our intentions, make us and our children righteous, guide us and guide our families. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.